I surrender to the Almighty my mind, speech and body. Vanakkam. Thirukkural is one of the most important literary works in the Tamil language. It carries the wisdom of the ancient Tamil civilization. It gives the Aram for human life. Aram is the natural order found in nature. And so far we have seen how the author Thiruvallur broke all the norms of writing a book. He even left his name out of the book because the Aram that he writes about are not created by him. He only observed the Aram from nature. In the last video, we saw how humans are blessed with 6 senses and the mind is the 6th sense organ. It is a subtle part or a sukkumam organ. Now I keep saying that Thiruvallur observed the natural order or Aram from nature. Why would we trust him? Especially when this was written so long ago, how do we know there is truth in what he is saying? In our current times, we have a measure for everything, whether it is a piece of cloth or a quantity of water or the amount of electricity. We have means to measure things that we can touch and feel and grasp with our sense organs. But is it possible to measure the amount of truth in someone's statement? How do we measure that? Our Tamil ancestors had a science called Tharkam to measure truth. The books on Tharkam forms the analytical part of Tamil literature. That branch of Tamil forms the Alaivai-Iyal or the science of measurement. Many books on this subject are lost or destroyed, and we now have only 1 or 2 with us. Today I will touch upon some introductory concepts from the book called Sivanyana Siddhyar, written by Arun Nandi Sivacharyar. Broadly, there are 10 ways of measuring truth, and these methods are called as Pramanam. The amount of truth in an information is measured using this tool called Pramanam. There are 10 Pramanams, but they can be condensed to the following 3 Pramanams. The first is called as the Kaatchi Pramanam. Kaatchi literally means sight. So this is the proof of sight. The second Pramanam is called as the Anumaana Pramanam or proof by inference. The third Pramanam is the Agama Pramanam. Now the first one, which is Kaatchi Pramanam, is when someone uses their sense organs to identify the truth. For example, I see a cat and I say there is a cat there. I used my eye to deliver a true statement. Or I hear a barking sound and I say there is a dog. Here I used my ears. I can smell a cake being baked and say that someone is baking a cake. Here I use my nose. But this is not an accurate method of determining the truth because it depends on the observer's intelligence and the time frame of the observed action. So it is not possible to get the absolute truth. For example, a policeman could see a woman dead on the floor with a knife through her chest. A man is sitting near her holding the knife. It cannot be concluded that the man killed the woman. The time at which the murder happened has already elapsed. And moreover, since the Kaatchi Pramanam makes use of the sense organs to get the input, the final result depends on the sharpness of the sense organ or the instrument used. And as the instruments get sharper, more details will emerge. So it is not possible to achieve the absolute truth using Kaatchi Pramanam. So Kaatchi Pramanam is not the best way to deduce the truth. So the next Pramanam is called as the Anumaana Pramanam, and here the truth is made by inference. When 2 objects are closely related, the presence of one indicates that the other object is also present. For example, fire and smoke are closely related. So the presence of smoke could indicate the presence of fire. But again, this method is also not 100% accurate. The third Pramanam is the Agama Pramanam. And in order to understand that, we have to go a little deeper into how the sense organs work in the body. If you can recall, in the last video I explained that humans had a sixth sense, which is the mind. All the sense organs, including the mind, are only instruments used by an intelligence inside us, and that intelligence is called as the Uyir. And we also saw that the mind has four parts. The first one is the Manam, which analyzes things. The Buddhi finalizes the analysis. The Ahangaram, which identifies as I analyzed and I finalized, and the Chittam, which forms the base for the other three. And together these four, that is the Manam, Buddhi, Ahangaram and Chittam, are called as the Antakaranam. So now we will see how the sense organs interact with the mind. Let's take the process of seeing. When the eye sees an object, for example a rose, an image falls on the retina, and at this point the Uyir doesn't recognize that the object seen is a rose. Initially it is an unrecognized image. Now in the first step, the unrecognized image is sent to the Manam. The job of the Manam is to analyze. So the Manam searches, in this case it analyzes, is this a rose or is it a cat or is it a chair, against the data that is previously stored in the Buddhi. Now the Buddhi has all the data recordings of not only this birth but of all the births that we have ever taken. And they say that the information related to instinct is also stored here. So the Buddhi confirms that the image is indeed that of a rose, and it sends this confirmed image back to the Manam. And now the Manam generates a response that is either happy or sad. For instance, when we see our enemy, we may have a negative response, and a rose may generate a positive response. And this response is felt by the Uyir. So I hope we are clear about the interaction of the different parts of the mind and the sense organ, and the final result is felt by the Uyir. I have represented this interaction between the mind and the sense organs in this figure here. As you can see, a person sees a flower and wonders what it is, and in the first step the unrecognized image falls on the eye and it is sent to the Manam. In the second step, the Manam sends the image to the Buddhi to search against the existing database. The Buddhi confirms that the image is a rose, and in the third step the Buddhi sends the confirmed image back to the Manam. And in the last or the fourth step, the Manam sends a happy response to the Uyir. Now I have explained the body-mind interaction for the eye or the process of seeing, but the same steps occur for the process of hearing, smelling, touching and tasting as well. And this is how our ancestors say that we experience life. We can observe this process of our mind in our daily life. For example, when we engage in a slightly difficult task like listening to music and trying to identify a tune, we can observe our mind doing the analyzing and confirming work. The Manam analyzes and searches our existing song database, and the Buddhi confirms that the tune is indeed of a particular song. Or even when we are trying to solve a difficult math problem, the Manam searches and the Buddhi finalizes. Further, it is said that the mind operates in a sequential manner, one after the other. So when we are multitasking, even though we feel like we are doing many things at the same time, the response to the sense organs actually takes place sequentially in our mind. But because of the speed of the mind, it appears as if we are typing and singing and listening at the same time. Okay, so at the end of all of this cognition, it is the Uyir or the intelligent part of us that experiences the final result, either positive or negative. So it looks like the Uyir is trapped inside the body, and its experience is limited to how long our eyes can see or how far our ears can hear and so on. So if the Uyir wants to experience seeing the Himalayas mountains, then it has to drag the body along. Now our ancestors found this as a great inconvenience. What if they could remove the Uyir and allow it to experience the world directly without the use of sense organs? A direct experience that would not need any sense organs or the body. And they researched how to do that and they succeeded. and that is called as the Yoga Kaatchi. And that is how it seems our ancestors found out about the planets in the solar system, the distant galaxies, the process of evolution, the shape of the earth, the stages of the human embryo development, and every other scientific discovery of their times. Such a person who is able to remove his uyir from the body and allow it to integrate with nature will be able to get a true picture of truth, and that is the absolute truth, because there is no use of the sense organs or the instruments, and therefore there is no distortion in the truth. That person is called as a yogi, and typically he or she is a human who has renounced all worldly attachments. And when such a person observes and says something, it is called as Agama Pramanam, which is the third Pramanam that I had listed. And they say that Jesus, Ramanar, Prophet Muhammad, Thirukkural, Paramahamsar are all examples of people who had this Yoga Kaatchi. And these Agama Pramanams are not meant to be disputed by regular humans. So it looks like our ancestors had this kind of a science by which the uyir could have a direct experience of the world, and that's how they were able to do all of these things. And there are many books on yoga and Yoga Kaatchi, and unless we have walked their path and used their techniques of becoming a yogi ourselves, and we are able to remove the uyir from the body and observe things directly, I believe we do not have the capacity to argue against their words. And if and when we are actually able to do that and spot the error in their work, then we may write our own Thirukkural. Until then, I choose to believe their words. If what they say doesn't make sense or goes against our beliefs, then it can only mean that we haven't fully understood what they are trying to convey. It does not mean that they have made a mistake or their words are silly or short-sighted in any way. Thirukkural, who is the author of Thirukkural, used his Yoga Kaatchi to observe Aram from nature and gave us Thirukkural. It is Agama Pramanam, and hence it is believed to have 100% truth in it. This is the reason why Thirukkural has stood the effects of time. I believe it is better to surrender to such higher powers than fight against it. Clearly, in our modern science, we have not fully understood our mind. We are still not able to digest the fact that the mind is a separate entity from the brain. It looks like we are very far away from the concepts that they are talking about the different parts of the mind and the interaction of the mind with the body and the uyir and all that. But this is how our ancestors understood things, and I will leave you with this concept that Thirukkural is Agama Pramanam and so is believed to have truth in it. And if you are as convinced as I am, then you may come with me and we can explore further. I will end here. Thank you for listening. Nandri Vanakkam.